I love when an NXT episode after a TakeOver special event has something worth mentioning, and this is one of them. Hello all MRBers and welcome to another video with me, Mike McRock, and I am one half of the McRock and Bolt Wrestling Review Show. Right now I am going to deliver to you my review for this week's episode of WWE NXT. Now normally I wouldn't review a show like this. This is a show that mostly doesn't contain a lot when it comes to the in-ring work. Usually a show after a TakeOver show, not much happens. But there is a couple of things that are worth mentioning on this show. I felt that this show had something to it, more so than your average NXT episode after a TakeOver event. So the first match on this, now there's only 3 matches on this card, and it was mostly recapping NXT TakeOver Philadelphia. I'm not really going to talk about that event. I've done that on my NXT TakeOver Philadelphia review. You can go check that out. It is on my channel as well. Let's get to the 3 matches that are on this show. First matchup was Nikki Cross versus Lacey Evans. This was a match that was made because Lacey Evans cut a promo a couple of weeks ago talking about that she's going to get rid of the trash in the NXT women's locker room. And this was mainly NXT trying to do something different with someone different. You know, I look at Lacey Evans. I see there is some sort of potential there with a gimmick that could work for her. I don't know if it will pan out 100%, which is why I could see why they had Nikki Cross win this match and Lacey Evans lose here. The match was fine in itself. Not a lot was happening in the ring. This was pretty much your standard at least 7 or 8 minute match, and it was an enhancement match for Nikki Cross. She goes over. I'm glad she went over in this match. In the same time, what direction do you have with Nikki Cross right now? I'm curious to see what NXT is going to do with Nikki Cross coming 2018. We'll see how that goes. I don't know if Sanity as a group will be called up to either Raw or SmackDown this year. Again, we'll see how it all plays out. Right now, I felt like that match was just testing the waters with Lacey Evans. Next match was the return of a tag team, and that was TM61. They took on the Ely brothers. This match I thought was just an okay match. To me, this match never really told a story. It was decent in-ring work, but not a story as what they probably could have told here. I mean, immediately TM61 look like they haven't skipped a beat, doing a couple of moves and a couple of high spots. I mean, if you really want to play off this 1 year off thing, you know, you could probably talk about something like ring rust, like they haven't been in the ring for quite some time, for that length of time. And at least you would try to attempt to tell that kind of story in that match. And what you really should have done in this is you should have had the Ely brothers get the upper hand in the first few minutes before you start giving TM61 their moments in the match, and they pretty much done the exact opposite here. And I felt that this match really didn't tell a story that TM61 was off for a year. They might be a little bit rusty, and they could have the potential to possibly lose the match. And here's the thing. You have TM61 go over in this match, and it seems like that the mentality of when someone or a tag team or a woman returns on the NXT or even on Raw or SmackDown, automatically they have to win the match because it is their return match. That should never be the case. Sometimes it's okay when you return to a show that you can lose. I felt like this could have been used here in this match. You could have had TM61 lose the match because they haven't been wrestling for a year, because one of them was out with an injury, and you would have told a better story that way. That's just my opinion. But again, I like that TM61 is back. I don't know about when they're going to get an NXT Tag Team title shot. I wouldn't rush into it just yet. Let them see what they can do within the next weeks or even months down the road. And if nothing majorly happens, nothing big in terms of any injuries at all, let it space out between now and probably during the summer of next year. We'll see how all that goes. And the next match, the final match, the main event on this week's episode of NXT was Tyler Bate versus Roderick Strong in a number one contenders match for the United Kingdom Championship. To me, this was a pretty decent, solid closing match to close off this week's show. This was actually not bad. This was pretty good. Again, it's not an awesome match as people were chanting it that it was. So, let me get this straight. You're telling me that this match, this Tyler Bate versus Roderick Strong, was just as good as the Aleister Black versus Adam Cole Extreme Rules match? Child, please. No, it's not. And if people thought this match was awesome, you're lying to yourself. Again, I don't see it as an awesome match. I see it as a pretty decent to a pretty good match. Not a great match, as people are really overrating this match. And it's annoying as heck. But let's just get back to what I liked about this match. I like, when I look at Roderick Strong, even though I think he's someone who only has a certain limit to his character, there's not much there, at least they emphasize the backbreaker. An actual wrestling move that an actual wrestler does, and NXT emphasizes on an actual wrestling move and not some high spots and flips and kicks and all that spot monkey crap. I'm glad that they're emphasizing a wrestling move with Roderick Strong here. That's the one thing he has good going for him. And that's in terms of the in-ring work. Again, there's not much personality there, but he is good in terms of his technical backbreakers and all. There is a reason why they call him the Messiah of the backbreaker on NXT. And when I look at Tyler Bate, I see a guy that's already been there, done that with Pete Dunne anyway, with the United Kingdom Championship. You already done that twice, I do believe, if I'm not, or maybe two or three times. I don't know how many times it was, but it's one time too many. And I'm glad that they went with Roderick Strong and not Tyler Bate, because I just didn't want to see another Tyler Bate versus Pete Dunne match. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing. I like when Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne are going at it in the ring. It's just that we've seen it before. We don't need to see it again. I'm glad that they went with Roderick Strong here. And something Mauro Ranallo mentioned as well. I like that it's an American going after a United Kingdom Championship. And I feel like that now you are starting to treat that United Kingdom title as a secondary title to the NXT title that the wrestlers could use in what they could fight for. Maybe down the road, you could probably see Aleister Black versus Pete Dunne. But right now, it's going to be Roderick Strong versus Pete Dunne for the United Kingdom Championship. When it's going to happen, I'm not really sure. Now, even though I like Roderick Strong being the #1 contender for the United Kingdom Championship, wasn't it a few weeks ago when Roderick Strong was in the ring and he called out Lars Sullivan? Where was he during this match to answer that? This just goes to show the constant inconsistencies in the WWE. It's like they went in one direction with Roderick Strong a few weeks ago. He's calling out Lars Sullivan, but now you're going in a complete different direction, and it's like, what? Wait, you were doing this, but now you're going here? I don't get what NXT was trying to do. Is like NXT wanted you to forget that Roderick Strong called out Lars Sullivan, and it was like a couple of weeks before that, you had Lars Sullivan in the ring calling out Killian Dane, and it's like they're not doing anything with that just yet. So it's like they're really messy in the directions where they want to go with certain people and certain individuals and certain guys competing against each other. I don't know exactly. I don't think even NXT knows exactly what they're doing. But like I said, this was a good, solid closer to a pretty decent show. I thought this show was just, again, above your average standard show after a TakeOver event because of the couple of things that are actually worth talking about, more so than the women's match that kicked off the show. This was mostly the TakeOver Philadelphia recap show that gives us, the audience, a week's room to breathe before you start building up to the next big featured matches for the next TakeOver show, which I might do a video predicting what the matches will be. So, with all that said, I'm going to give this week's episode of NXT a 6 out of 10. Yeah, that's pretty much the score that I'm going to give it. So, if you saw this week's episode of NXT, what did you think about it? Feel free to leave those comments right here in the comment section below. And you can also hit that subscribe button down below this video as well to become an MRBer on this wrestling review show.